Good day and good evening, and welcome to the solo challenge stream with me, Caetsu Chaiji. You can just call me Kai. Tonight we're going to try Skydeep Cenote and Vanguard, as last time we had incredible success with Caetsu and Wargozormo. And when I mean incredible success, I mean we wiped once to a trash pack in Caetsu, and we wiped once to a trash bag in Wargozormo. But never to a boss, for some reason. In regards to what things we need to watch out for in these dungeons that we're doing tonight, Skydeep Cenote has, the final boss has a mechanic where it has a multi-stack marker. However, the first time it uses it, it hits 3 times, I believe. And then every subsequent time after the first one, it hits 5 times. This has led some players to believe, because usually they see the mechanic like twice in the duty, to believe that it is an endlessly gradually increasing mechanic, like some sort of soft enrage. But we did see in video that it went 3, 5, 5. So that one. The problem is whether we can survive said stack marker consistently. If we can, no issue. In Vanguard, I don't think there is anything. Is there a stack marker of some kind that we need to worry about? And that's usually it. When that's it, hey Gazel, hey Bosco, hey Menely, hey Girihin, hey Obama, hey Zaf, hey Kazu Dragoon, hey Nighthawk, hey Aradil, hope you're all doing very well. And hey Matthew, hope you're doing well as well. Don't we already know that E4S is soloable? Yes, but it's not entirely the same fight, is it? And I guess the damage number is also different. With that said, I'm actually, well, I guess 1 player short to enter. The first pack after the second boss in Vanguard hits super hard. Oh yeah, I remember that one. Not the same at all, really, just same model and some shared attacks. Fair enough. Well, with the jokes people make about E4S, you can get uncertain whether it is as different as you'd think. You're playing Warrior, correct? Yes. We're reaching a point where, while it might be possible to beat a dungeon with a different job, it doesn't make any sense to start with anything but Warrior, because it's that good at soloing stuff. So, like, if you try it with a different job, you've pretty much proven that Warrior can also do it. Because if basically if any tank can do it, then Warrior can almost certainly do it as well. And I don't think you can solo any of the Dawntrail dungeons with anything but a tank, like, while we're on the subject. I don't know, it's a guess. With that said, Can I convince anyone in the chat that has a character that has unlocked Skydeep Cenote to help me get in? You'd have to DC travel? I mean, I can wait for that. The alternative is I know I have friends that are doing Frontline right now that'll be out in a moment, I think. Also possible that characters available. Nope, they're not available. Don't you also play on a in a different region, Obama? You just won. Okay, well then you're basically here, right? Excellent. Awesome. Well, congratulations that you just won. The story is, so, by the way, the little trick that they used, you might have seen when I, like, checked my various chat menus that they were in Seal Rock, but wait, today's Shatter, and how did they finish in 5 minutes? If you go into any daily roulette, but you finish after the daily reset, then you still get the daily bonus. So they basically went inside while it was still Seal Rock, and then they finish with the daily bonus active. Also, hey, Cyanide, Cerus, and Taldemar. Hope you're doing well. Right, so the way that this works is I queue into the dungeon once we're inside. You can, and preferably should, leave so that I don't benefit from any party bonus shenanigans. And because we are a full pre-made and we specifically queued for the dungeon in question, there is no punishment or penalty for leaving. This is specifically because we're choosing a specific dungeon. Just for anyone who doesn't know, if you try to do this with a roulette, it will still punish you. So that you can't use a pre-made to just, like retry leveling roulette until you get a dungeon you want to do. Hey Emir, hope you're doing well. You got another piece, guys, so congratulations. Thank you for helping me in. Physic, yeah, it's Physic bis and also book smacking bis, which is obviously the most important thing. That was maybe a little bit early on the damnation there. Oh well. I think we'll live. Hey Bronto, hope you're doing well. These guys have a lot of HP. Wow. The first boss is going to be nice without other people. Oh yeah. The boss with the gimmick that it causes your teammates to annoy you. Ooh, they hurt a lot more than I thought they would. Nay, not from Earth and Emily. Hope you're both doing well. It's going. We just started. This pack is chonky, to say the least. The timer boss might be the hardest. It might. We still have yet to have a dungeon where, like, without, like, wiping repeatedly, the timer being an issue at all. We're still waiting for that to be a problem. We have, like, at minimum, we have, like, 30 minutes per boss. Thank you, Kay. Yeah, I don't know if the timer will be a problem. It's just that these mobs have a lot of HP. Imagine if in a normal dungeon run, imagine for a moment if it took 4 minutes to kill one AoE pull. Nearly 5 minutes, actually. Imagine, just for a moment, that it took that long. Oh, look, it's a long boy. They have a tendency to hit like a freight train for no particular reason. Endurance dungeon, yeah. That would be what it would become, at least. Did you do another Mount Rockon at all? No. Hey, Zach, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Oh boy. It's such a long, long pull. Hey Vyak, hope you're doing well. Oh yeah, I think I remember seeing that. I think I looked over a guide for that one at some point, Zaf, and saw something like that. Or maybe I just saw like a clear by someone else. That might have actually been you, come to think of it. I think we watched another Mount Rockon run on tea time. Was that yours or was it Viek? I think it was one of you. I think that was Mount Rockon at least. You're still progging it. Alright. In that case, it must be someone else. I'm sure I saw it at least. Could have been a different Criterion dungeon. I do remember specifically a section where you had like where they were like really strong at patrolling a corridor. I do find it weird, just in general, Jack, when old content, like broadly speaking, old content never allows you to go in and do it, like, for example, unsynced. That's a little strange that they never let you do it in your own way. I do also find it a little strange that they don't allow you to do current expansion stuff unsynced. Like, surely that wouldn't make much of a difference. If they added more criteria in this expansion, would you do them? Maybe. I will do the variant. Guild test unsynced win. Isn't it weird that you can't go into guild tests unsynced? You can't actually enter guild tests without a full party at all. Under the Armor unsynced. Weirdly, if you were to compare Under the Armor unsynced to something like Ifrit normal unsynced, they would be like, I think Under the Armor would actually be longer because you'd have to run like 5 steps down the road to kill the boss in Under the Armor, whereas Ifrit starts within shooting range. And that's also a good point, Selika-sen. I still think that it's a shame that if that's what they think is the ultimate equivalent of a dungeon, because a particular complaint I've had with Criterion content is that they emphasize it in such a way that it feels more like a 4-man raid than a Savage dungeon, for example. In the same way that you could say, well, we have a Rathalos Extreme is 4-man content, yeah, but it is a trial. It's very clearly a trial. So that's a 4-man trial. In the same way, it feels like Criterion is 4-man Savage raiding, not hard dungeons. What would it take to make a proper Savage dungeon in that sense? I don't know. But the way I felt it, Criterion is not that. Oh, whoops. Here was your training to dodge the things in M2. Oh, whoops. But that's how I feel about the Criterions, is that they don't feel like dungeons. I forgot that it was also shooting bubbles. But you know, I have never considered that Criterion is supposed to be the dungeon equivalent of an ultimate. And I suppose if that's the comparison point, then, like, it makes more sense that they're so hard. But in that case, I request that, like, we actually get the Savage dungeons next. Why did we skip that? Well, it's not to say that there's Savage's normal Criterion. Well, in that case, Matthew, then I return to my previous statement. Criterion is not Savage Dungeons. It doesn't feel like Savage Dungeon. It feels like 4-man raiding. So your options are Criterion is ultimate dungeons and then it's okay, or Criterion is a Savage dungeon and then I say it's not. At least it doesn't feel like that to me. What would a Savage dungeon be? Good question. But yeah, as Zarv says, there would probably be a lot more emphasis on the trash packs than making the trash pack something that you figure out rather quickly, and then you just move on. Like, here's an interesting comparison. In World of Warcraft, they have this system called Mythic Plus, which is like a sort of like time attack version of dungeons that also like increases in difficulty, gives all the enemies like an HP and damage boost. And the harder you set it, the crazier it gets. There's also weekly challenges where there's like an extra detail to it, like, oh, this week, every so often, a little volcano spawns underneath all players, and they have to sidestep it, or they take, like, 80% of their HP and damage. So you just have to deal with that, and then you might say, doesn't that suck for mages? Yes, it does. Could also be like, oh, this week, tanks generate a third of the threat or enmity that they normally would. Wouldn't that suck for threat management? Yes, it would. Play around it. But the particular one that stands out is that once you get to a specific level, there's always, or at least was always, one of two twists. Where one twist that could be is all bosses have way more HP and do a little bit more damage. Or, alternatively, all trash mobs do way more damage and have, like, slightly more HP. Some dungeons were like, oh yeah, if you have the one where the bosses are stronger, then they take forever, or they're outright impossible. Other dungeons with really mean trash packs would be like, oh yeah, you can't pull like that when it's mobs are strong weak. Oh, it's baseline on all difficulties now, Teldemar. Fair enough. Same deal. The reason why I'm bringing that up is that means that there are trash packs that are problematic enough that making them slightly stronger would actually be a problem. Oh yeah, I see what you mean, Samuel. And yeah, also true, not from Earth. Incidentally, the Criterion dungeons have trash packs that are like, oh yeah, this one does a donut AoE, and if you don't dodge it, you die. This one does a tank buster, and you need like multiple defensive cooldowns or you die. Like they don't have like outright complex mechanics as far as I've seen. They just have do this rather mundane mechanic or you die. Some people think it's fun, Sunthrone. My favorite content back when I played in Legion was Mythic Plus. I did like Mythic raiding to get gear so I could like enjoy my Mythic Plus spamming more. BFA and on. Who knows, Sunthrone? The thing is, I didn't play very much in BFA or after BFA, but that was because other things caused me to lose interest. But maybe you're all right that Criterion is just as it needs to be savage. And that what I'm actually talking about that I want is extreme dungeons. Because when I picture difficult dungeons, I don't picture, well, you have to prog on it for weeks. Which is the reason why it is typically a case where, like, well, if you could make it a little harder, you could make it a little harder, you could make it a little bit harder. Like, as you get better, you can, like, tune it up to whatever you want. But the starting point needs to be, like, extreme difficulty or something like that. Not much more than that, because otherwise you've already pushed it so far to the limit that you don't have very much to give off. And that's kind of what I pictured, I guess. Harder dungeons that you don't just easily beat with 3 randoms. But if you have a group that is actually coordinated, you'll get it down today. How long have I been fighting this boss? Bosco says, did any of Kai's Mythbuster videos cover limit break damage? Like, if they can be affected by damage buffs? None of my Mythbuster videos have covered that, but I can tell you right now that limit breaks are not affected by damage buffs. They're not. $11 minutes. Wow. You know, I thought it would be longer. And yet it would be a little silly if limit breaks were affected by damage buffs. Could you just imagine that for a second? Then you need to use your LB3 during the 2-minute burst, and whichever melee is forced to do it, yeah, screw your 2-minute burst. It's now ruined. Because you have to click the limit break button. Fun. And also true, not from Earth. Limit break is usually placed separately in logs. And that's true. I think if a boss has like a debuff or something on themselves that increases damage taken, that can sometimes increase limit break damage. But usually anything you can do doesn't work. In the future, you could could include speedrun timers. You know what? That's an excellent idea. Remind me after this dungeon, we can set that up for the Vanguard run. I do have a speedrun timer. I just need to set it up. And that was a bad idea. You should have been focusing on one of the small boys in the middle here. You mean the slow walk timer? Yes, indeed, that one. Well, Imya, get ready, because when I soloed Dead Ends, the minion at the end dropped, and I already had it. I think the minion also dropped from Walker's Armor. So, maybe that's the cheat code. You just have to do these dungeons solo, then the minion drops. I think the Walker's Armor minion is, you know, the first boss? The snow thingy? It's one of the ads, just in a small version. Got the mount from O12. Well, the thing is, Imya, Savage bosses, at least old Savage bosses, I can't remember if current Savage bosses do it, but old Savage bosses guarantee the mount drop. 100% chance. Yes, true. It's not the case for extremes. 33 tries to get your A12S mount. That's because there were other people in the group then. I can assure you, Emir, that it's a guaranteed drop. So, like, if you were alone, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, Emir. It's guaranteed. I've never done A12S and the mount didn't drop. I don't know what you did differently. Maybe opened the wrong chest? I don't know. I'm sure there is a logical explanation for Emir's case. But it is a guaranteed drop. I did not mean to use Holmgang there. Well, hopefully I won't need it in a moment. That was really stupid. Yeah, A4S and A8S don't have mounts. What? A4S does if that is Alexander. What is the mount from A4S? Oh, right. Sorry, that's true. It has the Gobwalker. You're right. Is it just A8S that don't have one, then? Hey, Dretharian. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, that's true, Strath, but I'm not going to be so pedantic as to say, oh yeah, well, it doesn't drop the mount. It's just a misunderstanding on my part. Is there a robot with wings from? That's A12S. By the way, I know this is a little random, little side thing, but any healers in the chat who might be a little scared of like letting their tank drop in HP or something, just look at my HP right now. I count the seconds. I didn't even use a defensive cooldown. I just sat there and waited for bloodwetting. It's like if you ever needed a little bit of like certainty, once the mobs have settled, most of the time if they don't have like a random surprise tank buster, you can determine how long it'll take for your tank to die without your intervention. You can just wait. This is particularly helpful with warriors, because warriors are more likely to be like, well, I don't need to use anything. Bloodwetting will be available in like 10 seconds, and then you just see the tank's HP just slowly dwindle down. But they're not scared. They're not waiting for you to do anything. They're just waiting for their own cooldown. And then, of course, like, all this also applies to the other tanks. It's just that I specifically know that warriors especially are likely to do this. Simply because they're like they have benediction on 25-second cooldown. So they're doing the same as the white mages, just looking like, oh, when is benediction ready? I'll just use that then. And yet, also just to be clear, Strat, I didn't mean it like you don't need to help the tank because warriors can heal themselves. What I mean is, sometimes I see healers that get afraid if the tank drops below like 70% HP. If they drop below 70% HP, they start casting Cure 2 if they don't have anything else on speed dial. They'll just straight up cast Cure 2. But you can wait. Like, you can give it a sec. Sometimes if the pack is almost dead, don't the next pack spawn when 2 couriers die? That is an excellent suggestion. Yes, it does, apparently. I should have done something about that a little sooner. But yeah, my point is that this is particularly helpful if the pack is about to die. Like, if the pack is almost dead, then you can sometimes do this thing where you just don't heal the tank. Because, well, the pack is over in a second, and then I can heal you while there's nothing to attack. Then, like, my point is, like, it's just a random tip. If it was actually important, I would probably have mentioned it in a guide. I have actually mentioned it in a guide. I think it's in my tips for healers. Figure out how much your healing does. Don't spend time healing that isn't needed. And that also expands to, well, if the tank isn't going to die, then you don't have to heal them. Which is scary. But is something you can do to optimize. Well, the thing is, Bosco, that sometimes the reason is that the tank doesn't know where the end is. Like, they don't know how many packs there are. Sometimes it's a preference thing. There is an argument to be made that pulling the pack all the way to the door means you save like a few seconds of running. Is that a benefit? I would say no. But it's technically something. But the most common reason I've seen like that I've had like friends that pull all the way to the door is they don't actually know where the last pack is. And this is actually even more prominent in Dawntrail dungeons. like, both Vanguard and Origenics has this weird thing with, as you run forward, they send packs at you, or they spawn in randomly, like, at specific points as you run forward. So, the empty hallway with the boss next to it doesn't mean that there's nothing in that hallway. Does it even save time? That's the kicker, look at the Magie. Because on the one hand, it saves you a few seconds of running after the pack. On the other hand, while you're running, some jobs have trouble doing maximum damage. So you're slowing them down, you're delaying them, you're postponing them. Like, that ninja can't put down their Doton before you stop running. That white mage can't actually start casting Holy before you stop running. So there's an argument that any potential time save is lost because your group had to keep running. There's also the extra detail that if you have less than stellar latency, you might not actually be able to use your AoE combos even if they're instant. If they're not ranged. Because the game will just keep saying, oh, you're not in range. Like, your character will start to do the animation and then cancel it to be like, oh, no, I'm not in range anymore. So, hey, Cole. And see you, Silver. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, basically what I'm getting at is that there are indeed some tanks that pull all the way to the door because they think it helps, because there is an argument to be made, then it might help. It might help. Does it help? But it might. I didn't expect it to explode that big. But then there's also a lot of tanks that pull all the way to the door because they don't actually know where the last pack is. And as I said, that's a lot more common in Dawntrail dungeons, both because people don't know them that well yet, but also because some of the dungeons think it's incredibly funny to send the packs at you rather than the opposite. Arms aren't made of fire at all. You have a point. I know it's over on the other side. That is the safe spot. Hey, Shindayo. Hope you're doing well. Danish man VTuber. You chose your VTuber avatar. You could have been anything, and you chose to be just some guy? Really? You could have been anything and you chose that. Really? Well. You even chose to have poor lighting as part of the VTuber outfit. What are you doing? The rigging is the best I've seen. It feels very real. They told me I could be anything, so I became a random guy. Every time I'm looking at these bosses like, oh man, I've been at this for a while. Look at their HP bar and it's like, yeah, you did like 25%. You're a third of the way through. Maybe this one has mechanics we've never seen because it's usually dead by now? Well, I feel like it actually got a chance to go through its mechanics on, like, week 1. However, I've already realized that it seems like it doesn't have very much variety in its signature mechanic with the mirrors. I would have expected it to do something more creative than that. When I did it the first time, I felt like it was more creative than that. Like, genuinely, I think the reason why I had trouble with it the first time I did this fight was because I was expecting it to be more complicated. And it just wasn't. Like, genuinely, I got hit by it so much because I was I was looking around like, well, there's more to it than just 2 mirrors, right? Nope. That was it. That's also true. Not from Earth. That it does show some good pacing that we actually get to see the whole fight. It's not like, was it Matoya's Relict, where the first boss has a stack marker that most players never see. Thank you, Ardell. That is actually true. It does help to like the streams. Not exactly sure how, but it does help to say like, oh, well, this is a good stream. So it does help me. So thank you. Modman, my beloved. Did you know the second boss in Alexandria has a concentric rings mechanic? What's the concentric rings? Like AoEs that pulls outwards. No, I don't think I knew that. Really? I don't think I've seen that. But I don't think I've... Like, that's actually shocking, because I have had some interesting groups in Alexandria. Bruntom, I would actually say Samurai is really, really cool at the moment, but, you know, I also just released a guide for Dragoon, so if you need something that is, like, freshly ready to help you, go for Dragoon. Ah, 42%. Arachnipulse. So we have a name. I have not seen that mechanic ever. That's crazy. By the way, didn't it have like... Didn't it do like a... Was it a tank buster or a stack mark? I'm pretty sure I used Damnation to block something earlier. Or did I just use it for this? Yeah, it did do a tank buster, right? Has it done that the tank buster since? Am I crazy? I don't think it used it more than once. Yeah, the 4th Heavensward job in a row, yeah. Well, Philippe, I did the same thing with Machinist the week prior. I'm just trying to do that instead. Surely my mirror attack will work this time. Ah, he dodged it again. I mean, that's the way I'm going to do it looking forward, Philippe. It's the same, like, it's the same content, it's just in one big video instead. It even includes, like, a proper level 50 summary. And then, like, continues off into, like, the higher levels. So it's all as it used to be. The only difference is that it's one video. I also think it's working better, Obama. I've seen that. Seems like people like it hasn't negatively impacted how many see it, and I haven't heard anyone have any complaints about it. Because it also means that, like, you can find all of the information in that singular video. Okay, Mia, enjoy your evening. And hey, Jake, hope you're doing well. That's strange. See, Silva, I don't feel like there were problems with fitting Mirage Dive inside bursts. When's the Blue Mage guide? Not anytime soon. Any wipes in this run? Not yet. Oh, double Mirage Dive under burst. So that is an interesting detail that that I didn't cover. There sure is a lot of ready smuggling in Dawntrail, isn't there? Beastmaster guide when? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to first figure out how it works. We're almost there! What weapons do you think Beastmaster will use? Well, we know from Boja that the Beastmasters there used one-handed axe and shield. Possible. But I don't know. Now we go into the tech part of the dungeon. Oh, right. This is the stupid part where you can only pull one pack. See what I mean? They put like an enormous hallway and they put the mobs at the front. You just have to, like, this is what I mean. I didn't remember. But if I had remembered, I wouldn't have pulled them this far. I can't remember. Like, why did they do that? Why didn't they just let these guys be up here? Your timer's looking healthy. Based on how long these kind of packs seem to take, I'm guessing that I will have, like, enough time for, like, 3 solid tries at Maul Skull. Assuming that I wipe. And what I need to do is survive without using Damnation until the multi-stack marker happens. And things like that. Mechanics that are meant to be done with many players. So that I can see how much damage it does. It's not warrior solo, but he used a limit break. How long did he solo? Because that's the key here. Heidi died at 70%-ish. In that case, if a warrior soloed that, then this is going to be easy. And 70% I would wish for a reset. Oh, same. That sounds incredibly unfair to the rest of the group. Oh, whoops. I should have been switching targets a bit better. Am I winning? So far, yes. I should have been better about switching target. That was really stupid. Hey, Bad Angel. Hope you're doing well. It's particularly stupid because at this level, this Decimate is a DPS loss to use over Fell Cleave on 3 targets. Like, I had the perfect number and then I wasted it. I spoiled it. And yeah, that's the real kicker. Yeah, pun intended. Someone who tries to solo a boss from 70%, that's going to take like 10 plus minutes. And there's no guarantee that they'll do it. So like, after all that, they might still just wipe. And then you're 10 minutes down and you've nothing to show for it. Just because Captain Hero Warrior wanted to see if they could. Yeah, that's the key also, as Samuel mentions that. Like, well, I should not have used Rampart there. Oh well. I have to run away a little sooner then. That if the group says go for it, then it's not a problem. But the key is asking. I've once soloed the second boss in Dead Ends from like 90% HP, I think. And I did it in Mentor Roulette, no less. But I specifically saw my group go down and was like, I know I can solo this. Do you want me to solo this? Like, I can wipe if you want to. And they said, nah, go for it, man. And then I soloed it. But that's the key. Ask. Oh boy. We don't have that much space to kite on. That's awkward. It's hard to ask on controller. Yeah, that's true. What could you do? You could, like, maybe if you had like a macro, so you could just write. Are you okay if I solo this? Just have a macro that says, "Let me solo her." Only works if the boss is female, though. You lose the party bonus even after queuing the party. Yeah, if there's no people in the group, then you don't get a party bonus. That's the reason why everyone leaves after I enter. So that is also a good point. Someone who solos on a whim would be stronger than someone who, like me, who's intent on doing it alone. Because I have those, like I lose those party bonus %. And even if it had been a group of all tanks, you would still get a party bonus. Because you get 1% for having a tank present in your party, even though you have 4 of them. It's like a party will always be stronger than a not party. Every individual. Food check. Thank you, Cole. That would be the dumbest way to die, wouldn't it? Just short. Like 1000 HP. Because my food buff ended. Dumb ways to die. Man, these guys are chonky. Come on down. I invite you all to the corner. Join me in this newfangled experience in the corner. Ow. Let's walk over to the other corner. Come on down. Good luck, Taldabar. Bruh. Well, this is awkward. Right. Now it's now it's just you two and me. The bros. If your food buff runs out, I'm pretty sure it just reduces your max HP, not your actual HP. Never seen someone use an axe for stone masonry? Well, how do you cut out the bricks? Yeah, didn't think of that, did you? Now it's just you and me. Maybe if they spent less time moonwalking. Well, they did spend a lot of time shuffling, didn't they? For a second I was a little concerned. Then I remembered that normally I have 30 minutes per third of the dungeon, and this is the end of the dungeon. Good luck with Hammerface. I guess that is a Hammerface. I'm just waiting for my inner release. I would like to start with that. There's a mall for a skull. Did we name him? Like, was he just Mr. No Name? Then we saw him and we were like, pretty sure that's Mole Skull. Yeah. Pretty sure that's his name. It's like in Pokemon games where the professor asks you what his grandson's name is. How much are we talking? Easy. That tank boss does nothing. Wait. Alright, let me do the same thing again. But this time with a stack marker. Take this! Okay, that hurt a little bit more. With barriers and defensive cooldowns. Now, at this point, the question is how often does he do the big stack marker things? This often? Okay, then. Whew. Oh, I should be on this side. That's correct, Cole. It hits 5 times at most. For some reason, he only does it 3 times the first time, and then it's 5 times every subsequent time after that. We had a chance to see that on Tea Time last week, I believe. See? 5. So now we just had, like, we basically done the fight. Now we just have to live. And we just have to continuously juggle all this for the rest of the fight. I believe the myth came from, Samuel, that most groups only saw him do the mechanic twice. Because they only see it twice. They're like, well, it goes 3, then 5. So it's probably increasing. Oh, right. This is actually a little bit of a problem. I didn't even need Holmgang for that. Did you see that? Yeah, the mistake was that I used Equilibrium too early. So I didn't have any healing. And yeah, true. If I hadn't refreshed my food buff, I would have died there. Oh, right. Inner release. Right, I need Damnation for the pillar mechanic. I really hope this is enough. Oh, I'm dead, I think. Which one first? The stack? Sure. It hurts so much. It's not super fun that I have to I basically have to use Bloodwetting on cooldown for the healing, which means I can't use it for the damage reduction sometimes. I guess not cool. Which is also part of why he's probably gaining ground. Is because he's not wasting time with something that I could just sidestep. That he's basically not making any major mistake, like classic boss mistakes of using attacks that can be dodged. Like aside from that, but that still does mild damage to me, so it's not entirely pointless. I should have waited with that. I think it would have topped up anyway, so maybe it wasn't a mistake. I think that's going to land just... I just barely made it, I think. Yep, just in time. Oh, this is going to be weird. That's kind of as good as it's going to get. I did get some damage reduction. It's going to mega hurt. Yep. I don't have anything. You're not giving you Rampart for that one. You can forget about that. I'm not an idiot. Not that much of an idiot. think I can take that. I would rather have Rampart for the for this. Didn't help. Shouldn't have used it. Just should have used Omgang there. That was really, really dumb. That was incredibly stupid and incredibly wasteful. Oh, you have upgraded Rampart? Yes, that's level 92... 94. 94. And... Blep. No stack marker for you. That got really close. Like, multiple times. 75 minutes. And I think around 15 of them was the final boss. But yeah, because Rampart has that upgrade, it's a little awkward with the coordination, because you would prefer... Exactly, Valen. Now we can say, did you know a warrior can solo Skydeep Cenote? Synced. But yeah, because Rampart and Thrill of Battle both increase healing received, they both interact with Equilibrium and shake it off. But like, if you use all of that together, then you don't have anything for later. And it is also, like, in regards to the progression of, like, tank upgrades, like, at level 94, I'm pretty sure all 4 tanks get, like, a mega boost to their single target stuff. That's also the reason why Fell Cleave is better than Decimate on 3 targets, is because Fell Cleave goes up to 580, where Decimate on 3 target is like 540. If another warrior did it from 70%, it should be easy. Well, I mean... In fairness, as you could see, as the fight progressed, it was pretty clear that if the boss had had like 30% more HP, there was a chance that he would eventually run me out. Because, like, he cycled his rotation faster than my defensive cooldowns. That's also why sometimes inner release would align with the knockbacks and sometimes it wouldn't. That's something that is somewhat important. I have mentioned this before. I believe the first boss in Malika's Well, the Armadillo guy, it actually loops its mechanics almost perfectly on the minute. Like, the fight isn't long enough for that to matter at all, but if it was, then it is very convenient that anything that you use on the first minute, like, if it's a 1-minute cooldown, you'll have it for the next minute. Like, a tank would be able to use Reprisal for 1 mechanic every loop. Something to that effect. It might be like it might loop a little faster, a little slower than 60 seconds, but this stuff matters. Like, as you could see, if the boss had actually done, you know, the splitting rocks thing every loop, then I would have had Damnation for every pillar. But because he didn't, he, like, skipped, like, 20 to 30 seconds of every loop after the second loop. And that was what, like, started to run me down. If he had continued to do the punching rocks thing, this would have been way easier. And because it was a case of, like, as Kat said, like, if a warrior did it from 70%, because he had a group for the first 30%, it also means that he had to, like, at 70%, was probably not as far in the fight, like mechanically speaking, as I was at 70%. Samuel says, what happens if nobody stands in the stack tower? You take the damage anyway and vulns them, I'm assuming? Usually what happens with pillars that don't get soaked is they do similar damage to everyone instead of, like, just concentrated on the people standing in the pillar. And then they also give you vulnerability stacks. In retrospect, that could have been worth testing before I got really far in the fight. You found the answer on how to make a savage dungeon. Just make it really long. Respect to this boss for courageously attempting to 1v1 a warrior. That is an interesting suggestion, by the way, Xanadus, with the knockback thing. I just take it that way because then I'm sure that it's fine. Just go back in and test it. Not from Earth says, if you force your party to watch for that long without asking, you're kind of a jerk. Yes. See, that's the key, and I just, like, I'll reiterate that. When I landed, like, 2 times back in Endwalker, I got dead ends in Mental Roulette where something went wrong. And by something went wrong, I mean, one time 2 players died, which led to a point where I think there was a samurai alive, so I just kept the samurai alive. And we, like, duoed the second boss in dead ends. A different time, the entire party died, except for me. At the same time. Like, I was like, all right, let's do this. And we're going to the fight, and then they just get splatted because they mess up one mechanic, like, terribly poorly. I'm like, right then. So, do you want me to wipe it, or would you like to see me solo it? And they said, well, I'd like to see you solo it. By the way, minion drop, music drop. Is there anything else from that dungeon? Did I just win? Did I just win the game? Is this actually how you're supposed to farm minions? Just solo the dungeon. Zakuza says, I didn't know there was a minion. I didn't either. But apparently there is one, and I got it. It might be the case that most dungeons have minions. Did I win? Yes, and I got the minion and the music. The boss gave you the items out of pure respect, it seems. Well, you beat me. You really beat me. It got close at the end. I think I'm pretty sure I used Holmgang twice, but one of the times I didn't need it. And the second time I did need it, but because I didn't know that I needed it until I used it, I was in the awkward position of wasting Rampart. Right, well, next up is Vanguard. I need a player 4. Mias, do you have a Vanguard? Would you like to join to help me inside? Some of the packs in this dungeon do a lot of damage. Definitely, and a weirdly large amount, well, not actually weird, a large amount of them bring laser pistols. Right, so just reiterating, I queue us in, and once we're inside, you can safely leave because we're doing it as a pre-made. There is no penalty for leaving. Thank you. Oh, whoops. They aggro from afar. Alright then. How many of you have guns? And more importantly, how many of you have guns, and how many of you know that they're ranged? Oh yeah, now we leveled up and acquired better reprisal. Wow. I do have to say, I'm a little surprised that like they at level 94 they give you better rampart, and they're like, well, that kind of sucks. We should give them something more. Like just better rampart kind of sucks. We should add something to that. And then at level 98 they're like, do we need anything else? I'm sure 5 extra seconds on reprisal is perfect. They don't need any more than that. I'm sure that'll be perfectly acceptable. It's extra funny because basically all jobs get this treatment of you get like an upgrade to a roll action, I guess, at level 98. What is it healers get at level 98? Is that where they... Swiftcast is... Swiftcast is 94, right? By the way, ow. Depends on the healer. Oh yeah, is it 98 where white mages get the extra charge on Tetra? And yet, of course, astrologians get an extra charge on essential dignity. Almost like they're like, oh yeah, you think you can match me? Nah. still more. But that is pretty funny. That means that the healers actually get something real at level 98. Meanwhile, tanks get reprisal duration, melee gets feint duration, and mages get addle duration, and I believe ranged physical gets more power on their raid-wide damage reduction, which is totally not a roll action, by the way. Not at all. What makes you think that? I foresaw this eventuality and I came prepared. You thought you could best me. Speaking of, some of these packs hit hard. Man. This pack is crazy. Why is it every time the mob that I choose to target goes, right, I'm going in the back line, guys. He's targeting me. I'm going back line. Can we kill something off? Guys, I didn't even notice the Tetra gets another stack at 98. You know, personally, I probably wouldn't have realized either if I hadn't been paying closer attention, because it's like, at this point, I would have been like, what? Now, surely Tetra always had 2 charges, right? That's not something they added in Dawntrail, right? Surely not. Surely they've always had that, right? It is weird that they decided that ranged physical get basically a roll action with flavor. But I'm guessing some part of it is that initially it wasn't the case. And then they just decided that, I mean, we already made the animations and the icons, so, yeah, you know. And yeah, I do agree with that, Strat. It is weird that, like, that other job, like, that specifically ranged physical, can have roll actions, but not really. And yeah, if they had made it so that each tank had their own unique version of Rampart, then it would also have been way easier for them to make it so that at level 94, when they upgrade your unique version of Rampart, it got a unique upgrade, instead of it just being 15% more healing received. And I'm just saying, among the tanks, Warrior, Paladin, and Gunbreaker can actually do something with that. Like, Dark Knight can too, but show me to the Dark Knight who's like, alright, I gotta make sure that my Soul Eater comes up during Rampart. Oh man, I have to make sure I use Rampart before Abyssal Drain. Like, show me that, Dark Knight. I'm sure it exists, but I'm just saying. It's rather specific, isn't it? Are you also ranged? And you also hit like freight trains. Wonderful. Are you also ranged? Oh, you're all the same. I don't think I can do this pull as one big one. If you're all ranged, then this then we're going to have words. It's best to reave Rampart after Siphon Strike. What do I do on an AoE pack then? I don't know. Press F in the chat? I don't know. Good luck. Hope your healer will make use of your Rampart. Cry because you're playing Dark Knight in a dungeon. Wow. Is it really that bad? Do you actually pay attention to using Rampart before the magic combo as Paladin? No. But Paladin has Divine Veil, which also heals you. Like, my point is that all other tanks than Dark Knight have ways to make, like, some use of the healing bonus. Beyond, like, the absolute, like, well, I mean, you technically do have healing, and I think I'm dead, by the way. Yeah, they're too strong for me. Going to have to be one pack at a time. They do, like, 21,000 damage per volley per pack. Warrior down! Meanwhile, Maulskull over there, like... Why couldn't my auto attack be 42,000? You see, that's what it takes. You don't need fancy schmancy mechanics. You just need more damage. Like, more sustained damage. That's all you need. Should have been Gunskull. Why is it only the guy that I'm trying to focus who's doing the Axel thing? Is it an HP percentage thing? Hey, Shaq. Hope you're doing well. we winning? Well, we beat Skydeep Cenote, but right now we're having to figure out how we actually bypass this first bit, because turns out these sentries are strong. Is it just that one that knows how to axle? It just occurred to me. That it could have just stunned the guy doing the axle thing. Wait, is it just that one doing the axle thing? Why are they all named the same when they're clearly not the same? What is this stinging back the guild has? And notice, it's only that guy doing the stupid circle AoE. Why? Stinging back too, stinging backer. I mean, and if you're the annoying one, I guess you die second. The annoying one. They might behave weirdly because there's only one party member. What difference would that make for these guys? They would all be targeting the tank anyway. You can think of weird things they could have done to the AI. Yep. Now, Bocage, step one is they can. The next question is, would they? If the DPS or healers in range of the AoE. That could be. But then my counter question to you is, have you seen multiple of these guys do the AoE when doing this normally? And remember, there was one guy in each pack doing the axle thing. One heroic Vanguard sentry goes out of its way to take the target of Black Mage in their ley lines. That would actually be glorious. Like, the Black Mage is, like, all the way over in Narnia with their ley lines, like, I'll be safe here. And then they just see one of the sentries just go, death, and just charge straight for the Black Mage, just ignoring everything, and just running over, and doing a circle AoE perfectly on the Black Mage. But that is a fair point. There are cases where the mobs will like be like, well, I'm targeting that guy, and then just run over to them, and maybe they do that. I just don't think I've seen these sentries do that. So fair point, Bokaj. It's just exactly a case of, well, has any one of us actually paid close enough attention to know whether that is actually a thing, right? Bum 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 bum. Missed. Hey Lana, hope you're doing well. And that's true. There's no point in doing it outside of it's really funny. Like, there would be a lot more logic to doing it if the boss was still targetable. And that reminds me of, like, that was actually something that was quite interesting is, I can't remember if that was like the very start of the conversation, but during the conversation where people were like, yeah, back in Endwalker, like early mid Endwalker, where people were starting to be like, well, Machinist kind of sucks. There's no reason to bring a Machinist necessarily to a group because it doesn't do enough damage. And like the argument is, well, it's a ranged physical job. It can do its attacks while moving. And then you have a boss like P5S with Devour, but it stops being targetable when it starts jumping around the place like a maniac, which means that Machinist can't attack it, even though it would have been able to. Wait a minute. That's the outer circle, right? Are you stupid? But yeah, the key thing to remember when we talk about that is Machinist is fine. But it was specifically a conversation that was being had that, well, the main benefit of a ranged physical is that its rotation is fully functional on the move. And then, like, you see, like, a summoner. Like, what do you have over there? A smoothie? But the problem was that the jobs that had this quote-unquote benefit that they could attack fully on, like, fully moving was, well, when the boss requires you to be fully moving, it becomes untargetable because those poor melee DPS would have downtime. And also that, Cole, that was actually part of the reason why that whole conversation was rather silly. When it really... Are you serious, dude? It was because... And this is basically my origin story of when I say people don't know how to read logs. Is that Machinist and any of the other jobs that were like on the edge that couldn't beat P8S week 1 were only slightly weaker than the rest, but because they couldn't, what people saw was can't versus cannot, can, which means they were not good enough. And that's why I say, when people look at logs, they only see how the jobs rank, not how closely they rank. But yeah, the conversation was specifically, like, that was, like, that's the kind of conversation where we talk about range tax. But then you're taxed for having this ability, but when it actually comes up in a fight, the game goes, no, you can't use it. Like, melee DPS do more damage because, oh, well, they have to go out of melee range sometimes, right? And then they design it so that there is no time in the game where the melee DPS would actually need to go out of melee range. And also true, Strat, there's a tendency that the people that are the most vocal about this problem are the ones that have no business being mad about it. Machines should compare to the other ranged, not selfish DPS, not other selfish DPS. It's complicated, Rontome. The reason why it's complicated is partly because the selfless ranged DPS basically bring in other selfish DPS by design. Why would you pick Machinist when you could pick a Dancer and make your Samurai better? The argument there is, of course, well, if Machinist is strong enough that it is as good as a Dancer propping up a Samurai, then it doesn't matter. But that pinpoint accurate amount of balancing is really hard to attain. So that's really easy to say, but not very easy to do. By the way, this fight is an excellent example of an easy one. Does Fire 4 justify 10% damage gap? Precisely. We've reached a point where the job, like the range jobs that supposedly don't have full mobility, have enough mobility. Like I got Red Mage to level 100 yesterday, and I was like, well, every time you use acceleration you get 2 instant casts, and every time you swift cast, which is every 40 seconds, you get an instant cast. So like, you get a lot of just free instant casts as a Red Mage who's supposedly not that mobile because it's competing with things like Summoner and Pictomancer, supposedly. But Red Mage gets a ridiculous amount of mobility. But it's a mage. Yeah, man, you really waste my time here, Vanguard Commander. We might actually reach a case where time will be a problem this time. Like the first boss spends the full 30 minutes it is allotted. So the second and third boss better not do that. Red Mage got weird inconsistent mobility from Grand Impact. I don't know if it's inconsistent. You have up to 2 charges, so you can just use it when you need it. You also died at one point. That's also true. That lost me, like, some time. But not only a few minutes. But this is, like, the real killer. Every time it does that, it just wastes, like, 5 to 10 extra seconds on this fight. Going to have the pot on cooldown for Origenics. We'll see when we get there. But that is an interesting point. I do have pots. So that is a possibility. There's a possibility. But it is really, really a little sad when it's a boss fight that is this easy. But it still takes like 10 plus minutes. Like I think I might have used Damnation like once. Bruh. I can't get him down before that. That was really annoying. For my final act, let me waste another 5 to 10 seconds of your time. Evil. Oh, those are ranged as well, aren't they? Oh boy. Are you ranged? Kind of? Like, sorta ranged? I'm not sure. They don't deal nearly as much damage as the sentries from earlier. What? Why not? That's weird. One last wing blade. Just one more spin around the arena as my final act. Worth. Hashtag worth. Never mind. They do hurt. A lot. What do we do about that? What do we do about that? What do we do about that? We do this. And this. And this. And this. And then we run! Run away! Run away! Around the corner! Hello, why are you alone? Uh-oh. I have my evil strategy! My ultimate genius plan! What are you doing in the hallway? Ow. I don't think this is going to work, guys. It was a good idea. The problem is they're really fast at getting their shot out the moment they see me. So like, I run around the corner and they're just like, well, I'll just hold my shot until I pass the corner. Idiot. What? What? Why? I'm just going to cleave you through the wall. There's the Hyper Genius, the G7 model. Guys, it occurred to me that if I just ignore the wall, then I'm pretty sure I can shoot through it. He just has, like, bullets that bend around the corner. It's big brain time. There is some merit to it, Samuel. The problem is, if I can survive it, then getting one mob down doesn't really give me more uptime on the rest of the pack. So, like, the only time I would actually bother doing that is if I just wiped to the pack. If I wipe to the pack, then my first priority is reduce the pack. So that, like, even if I die again, the next try, there's less mobs. You know what the saddest part about this guy is? I don't think he's tankier than the rest of the pack. He just kept not being in the blob. Because he's the best ranged mob in the pack. He's the only one with a brain. A few mobs in here seem to be able to auto attack without line of sight. That is also a possibility that they take so long to wind up their attack that, like, it doesn't really matter. And then there's like two dudes that show up down the hall, right? Yep. Aha! Surprise! You thought this was everything, but there's actually more. They just like slide in sideways. Why? Is he tankier? It just seemed like most of the damage I was doing, like, didn't land on the G7 guy. What? What's this again? You know what, because you might be onto something with the AI being weirded out by the fact there's only one guy here. Because I'm pretty sure both arrow stats do the donut AoE. No, I know, Cole, but the thing is, because it's a ranged mob, sometimes you will just not get it in the blob. Like, he'll just not come over. You don't realize until, like, halfway through the pack. That's why I'm, like, suggesting that he might not have been tankier. He's just smart. Speaking of smart, that guy dodged my arm's length. Let's hide around this corner. You'll have no idea what hit him. That's what it feels like. Also, I should switch target. What are you doing? Why? I had to do my donut, you know? The donut. When they go over in Narnia, this'll get him. So, aerostat number 2, you don't want in on that action? You don't want to do donuts? The other guy seems pretty hype about the donuts. Are you sure you don't want to... just a small donut? No? Okay. At least eat the donut this mob lovingly prepared for you. Nom nom, tasty donut. Blam! Fire in my face. You should have them both. Yeah, exactly, Cole. That's what's confusing me, because I specifically remember in the twinning, there's a combo with 3 of these guys, actually. And all 3 of them will do donuts simultaneously. So if you don't make sure they're closely packed, they will actually leave you no safe spot. I believe in A11N, you know, the pack just before Cruise Chaser, there's also 2 of these guys. And I'm pretty sure one of them does a donut and the other one does a circle AoE, which means that if they're stacked next to each other, you'll get hit. Here it's just like, meh, just one of them will do a thing. I can't really do donuts, but L loves them, so I give him mine. Yeah. We decided that I could do all the donuts. It says so on the schedule. Yeah, as my final act. Donut! Ow! Mama says I'm never going to look at Vanguard Aerostat.M again. These guys have so much personality. I'm guessing you mean I'm never going to look at the same again. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, the mobs at the end of Thalea has the same thing where it's a problem if they don't get interrupted. Or it can be a problem at least. Is that a face? Looked like it was it had a it looks like for a second it looked like a face. It's not a face. Does this guy have a stack marker? I know it has dice. He does. Oh, excellent. Take this! Ow. The attack that hit me is called homing cannon, by the way. I'm pretty sure this isn't homing cannon. I'm pretty sure this is random stuff go cannon. It's been, take this! Some of it will hit you. It's kind of silly. It never occurred to me that you could just do that, but then someone mentioned in one of my mental roulette videos that I just dodge on the inner side of the fence whenever he isn't doing the AoE. Like, wait a minute, those do come in waves, don't they? It might have been you, Viek, that's true. It never occurred to me before that I could just do that. Well, that makes things a little easier. You call it search and destroy. Excuse me, is this like a Mudman case with its stack marker? Yeah, he does have a stack marker. Shows up at just before he dies, usually. Oh, never mind. Ask and ye shall receive. How much are we talking? Okay, that is actually impressive. I think that was at 50% damage with a barrier. I think I could have survived that clean in my face. And yeah, exactly, as Not From Earth says, Bukaj, the dice means you have to be not doing anything when it hits 0. Otherwise you get punished. Which means you should basically stop acting when it says like 1 or 2, something to that effect, to be safe. And that means like this. Because an auto attack can also catch you. That's a dangerous time to... What? To use inner release. I couldn't see where the safe spot was. Somehow it worked out. By the way, 30k? Really? Boss? Buddy? I think he had to restart. Like, wow. I didn't think I'd get this far. Right, well, I usually start with an electro wave. Let's take it from the top. Didn't he just do this? Huh? Just a quick reboot, yeah. It's always funny when the boss has this moment of like, well, I didn't expect to get this far. Ow. His AI is dying. Does he have an Intel CPU? He needs a new update. Bro? Ah, he's coming through. He's getting it, guys. This guy sure does a lot of barrel stabilizers. Had to pull up Kai's Protector 1 to 100 guy to check his rotation. Right, well, I usually don't get this far. I got past the 2-minute burst. What do I do next? That's really good. What's the next part of my rotation? Usually I'm dead by now. By the way, the first boss felt easy. This is ridiculous. This guy in the balanced Discord waiting for the Protector resource section. And it's really funny. I am noticing that he seems to give me a different timer on the dice. But it doesn't matter what timer he gives me. I can just, like, stop in the center and it's fine. Like, it would have been a lot more interesting if it was made in such a way where rather consistently you had to choose a different spot. Isn't the Kai rotation auto attacks and then tank busters on cooldown? Yeah, it would be. Like, if I actually made a guide for this guy, it would have been like, right, so this mechanic, don't do it. It doesn't do any, it doesn't do damage. Although, like, that crazy motion sensor thing, yeah, it doesn't do damage. Like, it could do damage, but it has an enormous mischance. Like, it doesn't land. This attack doesn't land. What you need to do is just spam auto attacks, and whenever your stack marker is ready, use that. Everything else, you can just remove that because it's dodgeable and your opponent will just dodge it. This fight was made to drive casters insane. Did you know Protector can solo 4 Vipers synced? That is interesting, Bronto. Stop mitigating and dodging. This guy wants to pass. Look, man. This attack has like 8,000 potency. I just need to land it and it'll be great. Just you wait and see. Like, could you imagine, guys, for a moment, imagine a job got an action that is like 8,000 potency, but has a 95% chance to miss. And it's a GCD. Like kind of like, you know, like 6-sided star kind of GCD where it like takes multiple GCDs to actually fire. Give it to a bot. And like, because of the probability, you'll have a situation where like, yeah, that like 1 in 20 where it actually lands is going to be amazing, but your actual rotation is going to be better. So like, ultimately, you use it once in your opener, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, whatever, you only lost one use. Imagine if they brought back accuracy. Oh boy. I'm sure that would go down well. Sounds like a typical XCOM sniper. You know, the funniest part is that because of the animations being so long, but the attack landing early, every time I finish my barrage of attacks, but I'm clearly moving as the timer hits 0. I would actually think it would be pretty funny. I know you can do that, but in a situation like this, it would actually be a little funny to see, like, the log after a fight like this be like, yeah, well, so, Protector, listen. 80% of your damage was your auto attacks. The remaining 20, like, the remaining 20 are split between this and your stack marker. Do you get what I'm saying? Here comes the really big pull. Or the really hard pull. I don't know if they're ranged, but this pack is brutal. Also this. Why do they have to zap in? Bam, bam! Blah, blah, bam! There's 5 of them! Oh man, I hope they're not ranged. You forgot the... Ah, yeah, I did forget the timer. Are you ranged? You're not ranged. Okay, well, that means that you're now easy. They're not ranged. They just... They have a ranged tank buster. They... Okay. How did you do that? They weren't ranged. They were like, I think they're ranged. And then they just were like, oh yeah, you're right. I have this. I forgot about that. Yeah, you know what? It just occurred to me this isn't happening. Take me. Just finish the job. I need to take you in 2 rounds. We don't have time for that. Magic autos, but they're biting you? Well, they're electricity. But yeah, I did forget the timer. I don't think anyone mentioned it before I got in. Sorry. Gen 3 bite? Yeah. This is like the bloodsuckers on Walker's armor. Oh, right. Communio is ranged. Yeah. They are pretty strong, even two of them. Good call, I think, to single target them like this. But I do think we have the time. As long as Captain Smart over in the final room doesn't, like, bring up some fancy schmancy trick and take me out suddenly, so we have to run it back. I think we have enough time. I think we'll get... we might actually reach the final boss with the same amount of time as in the last dungeon. Ow! Yeah, by the way, fully magic damage. Dark Mind would be pretty crazy on this pack. What kind of fire blast or hydro pump is that? What? Wait, Dark Mind has uses? It does. Okay, maybe we won't actually reach the final room with the same amount of time as the last dungeon. It just occurred to me that there's another 2 packs after this one. Pack that it can be done in one pull at least. Not sure. We'll try. Oh boy. It is quite scary with mobs that can bring out such a strong tank buster just out of nowhere. So you just have to always be kinda healthy, just in case. Yep, I would have died there. They were waiting for their moment, biding their time. Literally. They're actually biting away at me. you have any thoughts on how you would improve Dark Knight? Well, the main problem, I think, with Dark Knight is TBN could need a heal of some sort. And it needs something to manage during its filler. I don't know, maybe give them like an alternative finisher that applies not Death's Design on the enemy or something. I don't know. Just so it isn't Storm's Eye. Because people, like, could you imagine for a moment if Dark Knight finally got an alternative finisher again and it basically gives them Storm's Eye? Like, there's already the edgy warrior memes. Could you imagine if when they finally give them something to manage, it's Surging Tempest again? Look! It's Aerostat M! Except it's T this time. He's back! Oh, look, we have a Sturdy Man. He's also back. Donuts! Look at G over there. Look at him! I'm not going into that blob. I'm not stupid. Understandable. But still, though, could you? This is awkward. It's complicated, Cole. If you're not receiving any healing during the duration of Thrill of Battle, then it is effectively equal to no damage reduction. But if you are receiving healing during its duration, then technically it is equivalent to like making your HP worth 20% more than everyone else's HP, which makes it an approximate 16.667% damage reduction. But only in those 10 seconds, and, you know, whatever healing you receive, that's it. So it's complicated, but you're right that it doesn't really do anything when you really think about it. I'm surprised that I'm not taking more damage as I'm just casually walking away from the pack. Are you serious, man? That was a real combo there. It almost worked. Did you see it? There it is again. I'm just saying, there is a real chance that G7 here, he might have more HP, but he's certainly also smarter than everyone else in this pack. But one way you can think of Thrill of Battle as an optimization tool on healing, Cole, is that because Rampart also has healing increasing, has an healing increasing effect, they stack. And that means, just like how you would stack damage buffs, if you use both Rampart and Thrill of Battle, then Equilibrium becomes even better. So like if you know you're going to use Equilibrium, you can use Thrill of Battle. That's always been a thing. But if you use Rampart, and then you might have extra incentives to be like, maybe I should actually plan around using Equilibrium in the next moment. Bring me the warrior cold cards, a Chaiji. Yeah, also that, if you can get like protraction or crosses or something, you can make it even bigger. That might be a little excessive though, but it's really funny. He died doing what he loved. Donuts, yeah. Impressive with these mobs and bosses that they seem to all go out with a bang of like, as my last act. One last donut for the road. What's the point of manification at 110 seconds? Well, at a really basic level, it means that you can use Embolden on cooldown, and at the same time, you will always be able to use Manification will be ready for that. Whether you use Manification before or after Embolden, it will work. In an optimization sense, sometimes if you use Manification on cooldown, which means it'll slowly drift out, completely out of Embolden, you might get an extra Manification. So, the point? Hard to say. That's not Saber Rush. I'm pretty sure that's called Rage of Haloni, Mr. Xander. The timer? Yeah, I know. We didn't get it. But I don't have time to set it up now. I do wonder, does he reset back to his human form if you wipe? I'm guessing yes. I have this feeling this boss is like, what's happening? Usually I'm dead by now. What's going on? What are you doing? I should have used Thrill of Battle there. You know what's going to be extremely funny? I'm pretty sure that he spends way more time on the slithering back and forth and this in phase 2, which means he spends less time hitting me, which means that he does less DPS in phase 2. Yeah, exactly, because I had the same feeling of like, is he already dead? That's Saber Rush, by the way. That's a big one. Whoops. Order. A little awkward there. Second slithering is where trust gets the kill. How did Cenote go? Well, we beat it. We actually didn't die to anything. So by that account, that dungeon was easier. But the only thing we've died to here has been trash packs. Ooh, big heal, 72,000. Yeah, the most dangerous mechanic in that fight was the 5 back-to-back stack markers on the pillar and the actual stack marker. I have to finish my slash. Now that I finished my slash. It's pretty funny that we're like looking at him like, how are you standing again? Blade! Oh, that is extremely stupid. That better not be a thing you're going to use frequently, because that would be a mistake on your part. This is also what we call a massive DPS loss, Mr. Boss. I know I used an extra defensive cooldown for that, but that felt weaker somehow. Rearguard? Rearguard? Foreguard? Oh yeah, I see it now. There was some that mentioned that you can also just look at his tail. You don't have to actually look at his cast bar. Like, yeah, okay. It's pretty obvious now that I think about it. Screech! That reduces your defense by 2 stages, but it can miss! Alright. You sure had me there. Time for a massive DPS loss! Bam, 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 bam. Blip, 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 blip. And another one! My favorite rotation. The DPS loss rotation. Let's do it. The worst part is we're both losing DPS when he does that. This would have been very effective if you weren't alone here. But that's the classic. Bosses, soloing bosses, the difficulty of them is usually proportional to, well, how much damage they're doing and how much time they're spending actually fighting you. And every time they use a raid-wide attack instead of a stack marker, they're making a mistake. Get back here! I wasn't finished with you! Take this! Casting anything but Enrage is suboptimal. In a way, but I'm guessing that Enrage is like their limit break. It's just showing off those small ninja lessons he took in Solution 9. Watch this! You know, the biggest problem there is that I wonder how often he gets to practice using this form. Strats I shouldn't have done only anti-full light party combat strats. combat trading, oh yeah. Oh yeah, also that. Snake as your chosen soul thing must really suck, considering that it's just a measly, like, dungeon boss. Meanwhile, you combine with a big enough cat and suddenly you're a raid boss. Or a bee. It just has to be a really big one. B makes... Well, you know, yeah, actually, now that you mention it, like, in Final Fantasy terms, bees have a tendency to be absolutely insane. Hey, Yell Pickler? Yeah, I would say so. Don't think you can apply that kind of power scaling logic to this game? I mean, I don't think there's any logic. I'm guessing they just went with that's cool. But it's funny to think about. Have you seen Final Sting? Yeah, exactly. Case in point. The bees out near the Summerford Farms, the slightly bigger ones, they can nearly one-shot you because they do percentage-based damage. For some reason. Yeah, that's true, Cyanide. I think I also tested it on stream and nearly died. It's really funny. Just a random open world mob at like level 18 or something. It has a percentage-based attack that does like 90% of your HP and damage, because why not? They're just out there. We need to see tonberries on other shards. Is the M2S Enrage Final Sting? I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it would be something else. Does anyone know? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it isn't Final Sting. That would be hilarious. But I'm pretty sure it isn't. It is not. It would have been hilarious if it was. She just randomly uses that. With like 12, 13 minutes to spare, despite us wasting like 5 or 6 minutes or something on wipes, I think. I think like maybe 4 or 5 minutes wasted on wiping. So yeah, did you know Warrior can solo Vanguard? Synced. D. Samuel says, I don't think these guys are going to be the basis for Beastmaster, considering the Warrior of Light is canonically against the usage of souls for combat. Good point. What's the Warrior of Light's stance on, like, making contracts with Voidsent? I'm just checking. Pretty sure that it's a big fat no on that one. It's an equitable deal. Here's an interesting point. In one of the Encyclopedia Eosia, it explains exactly what gluttony is. The attack, gluttony. Supposedly, it is the Voidsent doing a massive attack as as like payment for a large sum of souls. And they also explicitly stated in the Arcadian cutscenes. Yeah, I know, but I'm also pretty sure that in like cutscenes involving Voidsent, we're not exactly the biggest fans of summoning Voidsent, but we do it, so it's okay when we do it. Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong for suggesting that it's impossible as a result of our stance on using souls. I'm just saying that in my opinion, it wouldn't be the first time that the developers went, well, it's cool though, right? And then just like ignore that part. What's the Warrior of Light stands on Toriolal's illegal occupation of Mamuk in Yaktel? Contradiction in our Final Fantasy? However, I will say, I feel that if Beastmaster turns out to be that you just like combine with a soul of some sort, I feel like that's almost like a cop-out. Like, they say Beastmaster, everyone is thinking, ah, pets! Woo! And then they're like, well, not quite. Like, that's how it would feel to me. That they just went, well, we couldn't make the pets feel awesome enough, so no pets. It's Blue... Yeah, exactly. If you just merge with a soul of some sort, then it just feels like Blue Mage with extra steps, right? No. See, here's the thing. You don't get 24 actions. You have a selection of 15 different beast souls, and each of them has a different toolkit. But wait! You can, like, bring, like, 3 of them into battle, so you can, like, switch modes in between, yeah? Yeah? still feels like Blue Mage with extra steps. They recycled. I only use recycled souls. Blue Mage is kind of everything. Well, my clarification there, Strat, is Blue Mage's gimmick. Their gimmick is that you can mix and match and grab 24 tools, essentially. But Blue Mage also has the gimmick that it does not have a gauge. Like, it straight up doesn't have one. So, any synergy in its toolkit emerges from the toolkit itself, so you have to, like, mix and match it so that it all makes sense. A Beastmaster would essentially have the same if it's, like, a limited job, in that the question is how it does that. It could be a combination. Let me put it like this. Blue Mage originally released with, I believe, 50 spells? Or was it 48? I think that it released with, maybe with 49. Like, it released with something like a cutoff, like around here. Something like that. And then, like, they've added more and more and more. But if you have a Beastmaster that has to be able to collect a bunch of different creatures, does it start with this much content, or does it start with this much content? And I don't care whether it's this much or this much. But if it is this much, I don't think it'll be 49 different beasts. I'm reasonably confident that whatever we're getting is going to be like, well, we've programmed so that you can capture these 12 beasts specifically. And when you capture them, they're added to your arsenal. It's not going to be like, well, I want the Quirl specifically from there because I like its color scheme. It's not going to be World of Warcraft Hunter. Is my belief. It could be. If it is, awesome, amazing. I'm just saying, don't get your hopes up. It'll probably be, you've captured a Quirl, hence you can do this now. And it wouldn't surprise me if the way they would work it, if it is a pets thing, is maybe they will give you like 10 different beasts to capture. And maybe you can use 1 or 2 of them at a time even. But let's say it's this much you're getting, right? Like, you start, like, Beastmaster, maybe it starts at level 50. Like, as in, it starts with a level 50 cap, just like Blue Mage did, and has to, like, work its way up over some patches. But some of these 49 things, if it's 49 things, will also be your actions. Like how Paz says, you've captured an Oppo Oppo. You can use Dragon Kick one time now. Like maybe some of your attacks is like sending in a beast to like make an attack, or maybe some of it is like you learning an attack from studying a specific beast. And then some of your attacks is like, well, actually you have 1 or maybe even 2 beasts. Like, I'm just saying, 1 pet that actually works and actually does something would already be pretty huge. But imagine if it was 2. Like, imagine if it was 2. Imagine if it was 3. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you had, like, multiple pets, then it could be, like, almost like Lord of the Minion style. Like, if you had multiple pets, you could have, like, let's say maybe, like, 5 or 6 actions on each pet. And then, of course, you also need, you know, move commands and things like that. It's like, you're just like, you have to make sure you're not standing in the bad stuff, and then you have to, like, command your pets around, and obviously they need health bars of their own. It's like, you have to, like, command them around so that you all dodge. Can you imagine the insanity of 8 Beastmasters with each 3 pets? That's just 24 things on an 8-man arena. And of course, you also need to have a move all command and things like that, so that you can just, like, call all of them to you or whatever. But, like, that could be really cool. But it wouldn't surprise me if what we're getting is Oh, by the way, I didn't get a minion or a music or anything from Vanguard, so that's a bit of a loss, I guess. But like, I don't think it'll be crazy like that. But I would be fine with it has a pet. The pet has unique actions that are actually useful and interesting. And maybe like have a mechanic where you can switch your pet in combat and it's actually effective to do that. And then you have your own actions that interact with your pet. Like, that would be cool. Erdal says, yes. Let's see, the presentation on the promotional side for Dawntrail says, capable of taming the wildest creatures and fiercest fiends, Beastmasters have unparalleled affinity with their charges. And that also makes sense because we've learned that some of the Mamulja are specialized in taming beasts. It's just funny to think about that they've basically presented two different ways that Beastmaster could work, but I have to admit that if they go with, oh, you just, like, use the soul charge thing, I would be disappointed. It would be like command missions, but 10 times more finicky. When is the Beastmaster supposed to come? I think it's 7.3? I think they said 7.3 plus or something like that. And yeah, there will almost certainly be an arena equivalent, like, just like Masked Carnival for Beastmaster. And yeah, Erenville is also an avenue. Blue Mage released in like moments before the Shadowbringers pre-patch. Like weeks before. But yeah, they basically said, like, I think they said either 7.3 plus or they said later half. Something like that. But yeah, Blue Mage came really late. Which also had the effect of Blue Mage is added, Shadowbringers comes out, Shadowbringers exists for a while, Blue Mage gets like level 60. Is it just a go play with this thing now that we've run out of stuff for you to do? Blue Mage kinda was. Kind of. Which also made it even funnier that, like, just here's the thing. The reason why I remember that it was really close to Shadowbringers is because I started playing Final Fantasy XIV in Stormblood because of Red Mage. Then I played a bit. I think right around when Lighthouse came out, around Lighthouse, a little bit into that, I quit. Because I came into Final Fantasy XIV specifically not to do hardcore raiding, and because I came from World of Warcraft, I was like, well, Alliance raids is basically flex, like, is basically looking for raid, which I don't want. Normal raids is raid, which I don't want, and that meant that extremely quickly I ran out of stuff to do if it wasn't Eureka, and I didn't think Eureka was very fun. So I quit. And then I heard Blue Mage was added. And I was like, alright, here we go again. Round 2. Boom. And I specifically came back to then play Blue Mage. And I found it pretty funny that so many people were focused on, well, if you just do this, you can speed level your Blue Mage. Like, just have a friend go to, like, you just teleport to Camp Blue Fog. Just go up there, and then you just have the Blue Mage tag things with Flying Sardine, and then someone else kills them. And yes, that might sound familiar, but the reason why you do it like that was because I believe if you fought higher than level 50 stuff, the Blue Mage either wouldn't get, like, XP value out of it, or it just didn't work with the XP multiplier. But you just did that. And just speed farms level 50 in no time. I leveled manually. Like, just killed mobs. Figured out, oh, I could grab this spell. That would be really useful. That would make my leveling easier. And things like that. So I got a lot more value out of my leveling experience with Blue Mage. And wouldn't you know it, I did the same up to level 60 and 70 and 80. Just leveled it normally. without help. But yeah, exactly. The Flying Sardine always was a trick to level. It's just that the distance from start to finish has increased. So I had fun with that, because specifically I was waiting for like nothing in particular, and then the Shadowbringers came out, and I was like, well, I mean, I could try Gunbreaker a bit, see if that's the one I want to level up to do Shadowbringers with. And then I queue for a dungeon, and the leveling roulette had like a 10+ minute queue time. I was like, maybe I'll just do it with Dark Knight. Actually, wait, that's also a tank that'll also have a huge queue for the dungeons, right? And then I leveled like, I think I did the first few quests as White Mage, and then it took me so long to get around to it that it occurred to me that the stampede of new Gunbreakers had already passed. Sticky Tongue was the goat during leveling. My favorite move when I was leveling up to 50 was Acorn Bomb into 1,000 Needles. And then if it didn't kill them, Acorn Bomb again. And then 1,000 Needles again. And then if that didn't kill them, you do Acorn Bomb again, 1,000 Needles again. And if that doesn't kill them, you go Swift Cast 1,000 Needles again. So you have 4 tries. And the reason why I said if that doesn't work is because I usually was fighting, like, not from Earth's Test, like, I was at some point fighting things 10 levels above me just because I could. That would still either 1-shot or 2-shot with 1,000 Needles, but the caveat is you actually had to hit. Like, it actually had to land. Yeah, exactly, Cole. 8 players are like an army of pets. It sounds absolutely ludicrous. And there's also a good point there, Samuel, with Erenville. He would probably not become the Beastmaster trainer in any way, because if he did, he would kind of feel like he was locked up in that, story-wise. Sleeping them so they don't wander off during the cast time is pretty smart. It's actually more about they can't attack you, they can't start casting something on you like Bad Breath, because it was often morbals I was fighting. They can't do anything to you while they're sleeping, and you're only casting 1,000 Needles, and it takes 6 seconds. But yeah, all I'm getting at with Beastmaster is they can do a lot of things. And if they actually do something really cool with pets, and the pets work well, not too janky, it just kind of works, then I think there is a chance in the future for like a new, more involved pet job. There's also a possibility that Summoner and Scholar will get more in tune with their pet job shenanigans again. Because one of the reasons, and like the primary reason I think that both of those jobs have like just kind of backed off more and more and more from pet management, Summoner by just losing all the pet management, and Scholar by, well, all I'm saying is Embrace didn't always have a 30-yard range, right? It didn't used to be this good. Like they made Summoner not have pet management, and they made Scholar not really need it. But if they had like a limited job where it is okay if it doesn't like work perfectly, and they make it work well, then I think there is a chance that they'll make more pet interactions. And that's also true, guys. It's actually the saddest part about Summoner getting reworked to no longer have pet interaction. Is one of the biggest problems Summoner had was pet ghosting, where they would command their Ifrit, Eggy, or whatever to do an attack, and it would take 30 years before it actually got around to it, which meant if you suddenly had to summon Bahamut as part of your rotation, too bad. But you ordered Ifrit to do that thing 10 seconds ago. Surely it's done by now. But it wasn't. but when they released Endwalker, they reworked the job and also made pet management way better. Like, they actually made pets extremely responsive, and then removed the primary reason to have that. At the same time. They're like, like the guy like working on the pet management stuff is like, guys, I finally had a breakthrough. I figured out how to make the pets react fast. And they're like, have some bad news for you. But I also have some good news. We have a new position. The Beastmaster job designer. But the bad news is we don't need that anymore. Summoner used to be both a pet and dot class? Yes. In fact, Summoner used to be basically Warlock from World of Warcraft. Like, oh yeah, very early on, you get your first pet, which is a magic ranged pet. It's an imp. Then, like some levels later, you get your second pet, which is a melee tank that can like taunt and stuff. It's a Voidwalker. Now, don't know what you're talking about with that Topaz Carbuncle. And then, even later still, you get a melee pet that is a DPS. We actually get 2 of those in World of Warcraft, but you get my point, right? You also get a dot with a cast time, and 2 dots without cast times. You also get like a debuff that reduces the physical damage of enemies. It's not a Warlock if it doesn't have Eldritch Blast. Well, the bad news there is that World of Warcraft's Warlock doesn't have Eldritch Blast either. The pet is a dot itself. Also true. In a way, it's also a dot. Not from Earth says the fact that Solar Bahamut and Bahamut are separate parts of the rotation feels weird to me. Like, is the next expansion going to be a 4-minute rotation? No. They just don't care about Phoenix. Phoenix was cool in Shadowbringers. The pet is a dot itself. Pet doesn't snapshot when you summon it. Could you imagine if it did? I'm just saying. Could you imagine if it did? And I have had someone write on one of my Mythbuster videos that pets do that. They didn't say it about Scholar. They said Living Shadow snapshots your situation when it is summoned. But Living Shadow is a pet. So if it did, then it would mean that EOS also does that. Or that Living Shadow is a special exception, but it isn't. If you take ABC into account, you could argue you yourself are a dot. Oh man, are we going back into the endless dot application exponential thought experiment? If you had a job that could apply an infinite amount of endless dots, but they're really weak, would that be good? What if you had a job that could summon minions with infinite duration that applied infinite amounts of dots with infinite duration that are really weak? Would that be good? What if you had a job that could summon like mega minions that infinitely summoned normal minions that infinitely applied and endlessly stackable dots with infinite duration, but they're really weak. Would that be good? And when I say really weak, I mean like 1 potency per tick. It's dot inception, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. What if you had 100 dots to manage, but each of them did 1 damage a second? Like, that's basically the idea here. It would be like, my suggestion here is basically the ultimate ramping job. Like, every second that the boss is attackable, you just endlessly apply dots to it. So the longer the enemy is attackable, the more damage they take. But maybe it takes like 4 minutes before you actually meet the DPS of everyone else, but by 8 minutes, you're doing like 3 or 4 times more damage than everyone else. How fast can you summon? Yeah, exactly. How fast can you summon them? If you could summon 1 per GZD, how many GZDs would it take before you overtake anyone? And how often do they tick? Do the summoners summon every 3 seconds? Do the dot appliers apply every 3 seconds? Do your dots go away when you die when the boss faces? Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Ultimately, the only bit I went with that was, what if it was a striking dummy? But that is something that Final Fantasy XIV is missing. I don't know if World of Warcraft still has it, but it used to be a thing that... Like, speaking of the Mythic Plus thing we talked about earlier, that, like, classes, or rather specializations with upfront burst often had some level of advantage in dungeons because fights were shorter. But the longer a fight is, the stronger a specialization with ramp gets. A particular example of that was Warlock, actually. Just a simple example is Warlock has, I think it has, a dot called Curse of Agony. It might not, it might actually just be called Agony now. But the way it works is you put it on the enemy, and originally when it was in vanilla World of Warcraft, it was simply designed such that it said it does this much damage over, I think it was 24 seconds, and it ticked every 2 seconds, but the first tick did terrible damage, and then like it would ramp up. So like you had, I think you also had a dot called Corruption, and Corruption did like something in the ballpark of like 2/3 to like 70 or 80% of the damage of Agony. But Corruption ticked every 3 seconds, and it did the same damage every tick. Whereas Agony started doing basically nothing. But by the last tick, it hit hard. So like you had when you were considering, should I even use Agony? It was like, well, is the mob going to survive 24 seconds? What they eventually did was they changed it so that each time it ticks, it gains a stack, and it caps at, I think it's 10 stacks, and when it is at 10 stacks, it does maximum damage. So if you just make sure it doesn't drop off, it'll stay at maximum damage. But that still meant, because they changed it to tick every 3 seconds, I believe, that it would take you 30 seconds or so for it to ramp up. And if you let it drop, then you need, like, then you had to ramp up again. But World of Warcraft also specifically has the, what's it called? This mechanic where you can, if you reapply a dot, it like 30% of the duration carries over to the next application. It had a specific name. Can't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was. The reason why it was interesting that it had a specific name is because it used to be a mechanic unique to Warlock. And then, like, the next expansion over, they were like, actually, this is really cool. We should just give everyone that. And then they gave everyone that. Just made it so that if you reapply a dot or a hot early, it'll carry over 30% duration to the next one. I mean, Higanbana's a DPS gain at what, like 45 seconds, disregarding Showa weirdness? If we disregard Showa weirdness, let's check for a second. Oh, that's actually really difficult to calculate now. It's 1,200 potency total. And Midare, you always get 2 of them. And they're 1,280, but because you get 2 of them, the proper comparison, the fair comparison is Higanbana and a GCD, or double Midare. But it's also more complicated than that, because of course it takes 8 GCDs to prepare Midare, and it takes 2 to prepare Higanbana. At most. Yeah, so I think it might be a flat amount that fully carries over when reapplied versus a certain time remaining. Like, are you talking about the, I think it was called Contagion, that mechanic in WoW. I believe it was like a set amount of time, but because the duration of dots in World of Warcraft is actually reduced by haste, like it actually compresses dots so that they get it was Pandemic, thank you. Like the way it works in WoW is like it compresses, and whenever there's actually space for an additional tick, they'll just add an additional tick and then like re-increase the duration and like compress it again and then add a tick. But a certain amount of duration can carry over. By the way, just personal preference, I think that's more interesting than spell speed increasing the damage of your dots. That it like compresses your dot so that it actually lasts less time, but once there's space for another tick as a result of being compressed, it adds an additional tick. It's a cooler way to do it. Is it better? Probably not. I think actually what they ultimately did was made it so that it compresses, but it actually is always the same duration, so that when it runs out, it'll just do like a tick for whatever was left. So like if you had enough speed or haste that you had space for 10.5 ticks, it would do 10 ticks, and then like in slightly less time than normal, and then the last tick would do only half damage. Spell speed increasing your dot damage is such a joke. You know what's even dumber? Skill speed doesn't reduce your swing timer. It increases your auto attack damage. That one is silly. Like, I see where they were going. If it actually reduced your GCD, or like your swing timer, sorry, then there would be something really stupid that paladins could do. And at some point, there would have been something really stupid ninjas could do, because ninjas used to generate ninki from their auto attacks. Exactly, go 2.0 GCD Paladin. Get that sweet Oath Gauge. I think there's also a Realm Reborn swords with faster swing timers still in the game. You probably shouldn't use them, but it would be really funny. And you just have so much attack speed that you can could actually maintain Holy Sheltron. That would be pretty like that. See, that's something that was interesting with like stat management in WoW, was that sometimes if you had enough of a stat, then you could do something that normally wasn't possible, or even though it wasn't good, you could do it. Strauss says, my statics Vipers running 1800 skill speed. Are they doing that? Like, by their own free will? Or is it because of something else? Why that much? He passed an 86. I mean, so here's the thing. I've talked about this before. Viper doesn't actually hate skill speed. It's just that you don't get more Vice Winders. You don't get more Uncoiled Furies. You don't get more Serpent's Ire from it. But you do get more Reawakens and you get more filler combos. And your filler combo's actually not bad as a Viper. Like, actually, genuinely, it's actually pretty good. Oh. Strat says they standardized all the weapon speed in Heavensward, I believe, because Sword Oath made some swords way better because of fast attack speed. That is part of the reason why they did that, but they didn't do that in Heavensward. But that is the core reason why they did it in Shadowbringers, it seems. Well, that is a fast weapon. Why? What would you like me to do with it? How? What's the GCD if you have had 1800 skill speed on a Viper? $233, and then you also have the built-in. Like, your base GCD would be like below 2. That was the fastest I could find on the market board. That is also really fast. Like, you'd get over 10% more Oath Gauge with that. It's really big. Weird that it's that fast. You know, they actually... Like, I'm pretty sure what might have happened, Strat, is that they noticed that like, they might have realized that it could be a problem in Heavensward, and then in Stormblood they realized that it was a problem, and then in Shadowbringers they standardized it. Because Heavensward, they add... I believe it was Heavensward they added Sword Oath, I guess, even though it's, like, lower level, I'm pretty sure. Or was. And Sword Oath made it so that your Oath Gauge was generated from auto attacks, where before it was generated from blocks. They standardized Sword Oath damage. Right. That's true. I do remember that they made it so that Sword Oath's damage was standardized so that it didn't get better with faster or slower weapons. It was just, like, it was the same damage over more or less time. Equipping a shield should slow your auto attacks on Paladin, but now you can block. Make Paladin use different things from main tank or off tank. Well, it's a good idea, Cole. But you know what would happen. What? Wearing a shield is a DPS loss? I don't want to play with you anymore. Sword. Oh, let's go. Let's do only sword. You know that's what's going to happen. Just correct the potencies for the DPS. Did you know you can't use shield block without a shield? I actually did know that. Yes, I did know that. But yeah, that is the thing. If it came out that it was a DPS loss to wear a shield, there would probably be people that just wouldn't wear a shield then. But I do agree that it would be interesting if they added other things that you could, like, so that you could have something else in your offhand. But I understand that the reason why they wouldn't is if they did, then shields wouldn't be the thing that you used. And what would probably happen is players would go, oh man, paladins suck defensively, and then people would respond with, just wear a shield, and it's like, well, if I wear a shield, then my damage is bad. And it's like, but does that matter? Yeah, it does, because if I wear a shield, I'm less damaged than a Dark Knight. Why can't we main hand shield, offhand sword? That would be funny. Exactly, Zero Silver. 2% DPS loss, the sky is falling. It would. And all I'm saying is, we've already discovered that there's a too large percentage of players that wouldn't be able to handle that responsibility of choosing defense over offense for once. Did they fix the shield block numbers? Yes, they did. They did indeed. How about this? I mean, look at all these no people melding tenacity. If they wanted players to choose defense, they gotta give them a reason. Correct. And that, I get the impression this is already a problem they're having trouble dealing with. This reminds me of that time in release Stormblood when all tanks were wearing Heavensward slaying accessories for DPS.
Ooh.
And then once crafted accessories came in, they just dunked on it with strength materia, just decimated it with strength materia, just wham! What do you mean I need savage accessories? My bis is pentamelded tank accessory, crafted accessories with strength in it. Yeah, they added strength to the tank accessories in Shadowbringers. I specifically remember, at least in the first raid tier. Exactly, Strat. That's what I mean with the strength materia. In Shadowbringers, they added strength, and basically they added whatever primary stat your job uses in addition to vitality to all accessories, and then they removed primary stat materia. In Stormblood, you had strength materia. You actually also had Dex, Intelligence, Mind, and Vitality materia, but gear with Vitality on it already had it maxed out, so you couldn't actually put that in them. It was only accessories because tank accessories only had Vitality on them, and for example, slaying accessories only had Strength on them, so you could put Vitality in that. You wouldn't, but you could. But the problem with that kind of thing is that for tanks, it was like, well, if actually for any job, really, if I can put my primary stat in it, I will. Period. Like, it wasn't like how, like with crit now, where it's like, well, I mean, like, sometimes it could be better to do something else. It's really rare, but sometimes it's better to put something other than crit in your gear. Then it was, if there's space for strength, you put strength in it. So bad that I specifically remember, and the reason why I remember this so vividly is because I was in a free company back in Stormblood. And I had friends in the free company who were complaining that they couldn't join party finder groups because the party finder groups for like re-clears had set the item level requirement to basically the equivalent of 730, right? So you needed full bis. But full bis for tanks would have been like 720. Because their entire right side was accessories. And the only way they could join these groups was if they had like an extra set of accessories, on, like Savage Drop accessories on hand, just to equip so their item level matched up. And then they could join, take their actual best in slot on afterwards, and then go on with their day. That's the reason why I knew. Because they specifically explained it to me. I'm like, that's weird. Yes, it is. And then in Shadowbringers, they fixed it by putting strength on accessories for tanks. Hey, tank, your HP is a bit high. Using slaying accessories. Status resistance materia. I don't remember that, but I do remember that there are gear, like from A Realm Reborn, that sometimes has something like that. Max says, I sort of wish they'd bring back branching class options like with Arcanist into Summoner Scholar. Gladiator into Paladin or Viper would make sense. I guess in a way. In a way, yeah. But I also feel that Gladiator into Viper or Paladin would, like, growth-wise make zero sense because they have so little in common with their rotations. But they could have, of course, made that. But that is interesting, being able to stack stun resistance. But I can kind of see how that, like, why that would be a thing. Because, especially in guild hests, actually, you have random mobs that stun you, or sleep you, or slow you in various ways. And then you get to an actual dungeon, and it's like, maybe they'll put a vulnerability debuff on you, I guess. But if to actually put something really detrimental on you, you have to not dodge a thing most of the time. Like, the only thing you typically see regular mobs in a dungeon apply to you that you can't avoid is something that makes you take more damage, or something that slows your GCD. It doesn't stop it, but it slows it. Like in Holminster Switch. Everything else, it's pretty much, well, you messed up the mechanic, so now we put paralysis on you. You got hit by the thing, so now you get stunned. And if you can just avoid these mechanics, then why would you have stun resistance? If the only way to get stunned is by getting hit in the first place, how about just don't get hit? I think they were meant for like 2.0 PvP or were holder from 1.0. That could also be. Did gear actually matter in PvP back then? You had a special stat called PvP power, even that raised stats in PvP. That's pretty funny. Because PvP power was a thing in World of Warcraft that was added like a few years before Realm Reborn. Oh, it's a fate. Yeah, that usually has an effect of doing something weird. But the reason why it would be really annoying if paladins had different, like, swing timers on different swords is... Imagine, if you will... I think I've done this example before, but let's go again. Imagine you reach level 100. Your, like, artifact weapon has a swing time of 1.92. Really fast. But it's also, like, item level 690, right? Then you see the tome weapon for 700, at 700. Oh, its swing time is 2.0. Well, it's stronger. It's a little slower, so a little less oath gauge, but you can manage. Then you see the crafted one, or even the extreme one, and 710. Oh yeah, but its swing time is 2.1. 5% more time between swings. It's kind of sucky now. And then, when you finally make your way through the Savage raid, the Savage weapon has a 2.32 swing timer. We saw one of those at the market before. 2.32. So, like, that's an additional 10%-ish on top of swing time weight. Just for the sake of comparison, because you need to swing 10 times to be able to use Holy Sheltron. This sword takes 19.2 seconds between each Holy Sheltron. This one, which is basically default, takes 22.4 seconds. Which means that this sword generates something around 10, maybe 7 or 8 more oath gauge in the same time this one generates 50. So basically, in the time this one generates 50, this one generates like 57 or 58. Maybe 56. You get my point. It adds up. So you would be met with the question of, do you want to do more damage, or do you want to be able to use Holy Sheltron more? Which is a really stupid question, isn't it? So, like, either the swing time is important, which means that you can't use your cool new weapon, which sucks, or it doesn't matter, and if it doesn't matter, then why do we have varying swing timers anyway? Like, if it's designed such that, well, fights are balanced around the fact you have this swing timer, sometimes they're just a little faster, so it doesn't matter. Then it would be like having different swing timers would be like the game just punching you in the face for no reason. Like, just like they just effectively just hand you your weapon and also say, by the way, you suck. What are you gonna do about it? Whereas if they just normalize the swing timers, then you don't have this problem. Obviously, you choose Holy Sheltron. You know, the weirdest thing is that if you had to make this choice, you would choose the faster weapon in lower level content. Actually, this is something... I think this is a... we'll end it on that one, but... Sometimes we talk about, is a player in max level gear stronger when synced down than a player in good gear at the given level? Like, is a person in full best in slot at level 60 weaker than a level 100 in full best in slot for a level 100 at level 60? In most cases, the answer is the level 100 is stronger. Because even if the level 60 is fully decked out in materia and everything, and the level 100's materia won't work, well, just look at this weapon, right? This one, you could put, like, a directed materia in. But this one would have 2 stats maxed out, and also, actually, it would have 3 stats maxed out, as you can see. don't ultimate say that you want appropriate gear? Sometimes, and it's actually related to this. The way this works, I actually have talked about this in one of my Mythbuster videos on this exact subject. If a weapon is synced down to item level 145, which is what this weapon has, then what it does is it makes it so that the stats on the original weapon is, like, if this weapon gets synced down to this one, the stats on this weapon is unchanged. It's just like, imagine it's like a tunnel that you have to like shove all the stats through, but the tunnel size is dependent on the item level. And you see, like, when you sync the item level down to 145, there isn't space for 132 physical damage. There's only space for 67. There isn't space for 297 strength. There's only space for 41, and so on and so forth. Which means that when this sword gets synced down to the other sword, it would only have 48 crit. It would basically say 297 out of 48. And only give you 48. And then it would look at determination and go 219 out of 48. And it would go tenacity 51 out of 48. And only give you 48. But it would also turn off any materia in the item. So the reason why sometimes you have item level appropriate items in ultimates is if the actual presence of materia, which turn off when synced down, if the presence of materia is actually better than having a high item level item synced down, then you would use the appropriate item. But sometimes this isn't the case, and the older an ultimate gets, the more likely it is that this becomes the case. But it is a small difference. But the reason why this is interesting is, let's say that there was a level, like, let's say, this weapon, actually. This weapon. In a level 15 dungeon, this would be god tier. Like, right? It would be fully maxed out on stats. It would be as good as it gets. Because in Sastasha, this is what you're working with. This is the limit. 2 strength, 2 vitality, 3 tenacity. But this weapon swings faster. See what I mean? So, if you had the choice between this and this in Sastasha, well, this one would, in addition to crit and tenacity, also give, like, 3 determination. This one would swing, like, 10% faster. Is that better? No, because the auto attack modifier makes it so that these two weapons will do the same auto attack DPS over the same time frame. The only way it would matter is if you got synced to level 35, where the amount of auto attacks you make actually matter. And if they hadn't decided to make it so that all weapons have normalized speed, they could have made it differently. They could have made it so that your swing timer determines how much gauge you get. So like a slower weapon might generate 6 or 7, and a faster one would generate like 3, 4, or maybe 5. They could have done it like that as well, and you would still get the same result. But they didn't do that, which means that the relics of the past that have that faster swing timer actually have an advantage when synced down to the level range of 35 to any level where the downsides of a weaker weapon isn't noticeable. And I guess the best one is either the Rakshasa Blade, because it's 208, that is slightly faster than the standard 224, or something at like 192, like this one that Gazel found. And that's also true, Strat. The defensive has to actually matter, and in these lower level dungeons, having like like 8.5 more oath gauge per 10, like per, well, actually, let's see. You would have like 23 more oath gauge per minute with this sword, relative to a normal sword, I think. I might have not done that calculation perfectly, but around 20 more. So per minute, you would get like a half Chiltron. Wow. Amazing. So yeah, it's kind of a case of it doesn't really matter, which is exactly the reason why if they had kept varying swing timers around, it would have just been like, it would have been like specifically paladins, if they like switch from a faster weapon to a slower one, but it's an upgrade, it would be like the developers basically just spitting on your new sword before handing it to you. Like, congratulations! Like, why? I don't like you. Yeah, guys, so it's because they go in steps. At level 96, it starts to increase again, it seems. Which is because they need to be like a like it needs to be higher item level than the relics before they start to increase again. And yeah, exactly, not from Earth. How did that reach? That is an excellent question. But that is exactly it. You get a new one-handed weapon, but you don't have a shield to match. As a mage. And exactly, Strat, in the same way there used to be shields with different block rates and block values, where you could have a tower shield with a really low block rate, but a really high block value, so when it blocks like 30%. Or you can have a buckler that blocks all the time, but when it blocks, it's like 7 or 10. And back when you could only generate oath gauge by blocking, it meant that the tower shield only gave you one Sheltron very, very rarely. And that was it. Whereas the buckler blocked frequently. But ultimately, you only really wanted to block the attacks that really matter. And once you got Sword Oath, you know, you didn't have to block to get that. So you could just block the things you needed to block. Which meant that, I think we talked about that Tuesday. Bucklers offered a higher frequency of the attack called Shield Swipe, which you could only use after a block. And like Tower Shields offered a higher block value when you did block, which could be helpful for blocking an attack, although back then you couldn't block magic attacks, so it wasn't always that helpful. But if we look at that with today's eyes, if we still had Shield Swipe and the choice between shields that block more frequently or less frequently, then we take the exact same scenario. Your artifact shield is a buckler. You could only shield swipe once every 15 seconds back then. I thought it was every 5 seconds. I was sure it was every 5. I'll go on with my comparison anyway. Your artifact shield is a buckler and it blocks really frequently, which means you can use shield swipe exactly on cooldown. That's good. Then when you you see other shields on the way, you're like, the 700 one that has lower block rate, that's a bit annoying. The 710 one, it's okay. It's like evenly matched, like how it is now. And then you get your Savage shield, finally beating the final boss, and it's a tower shield. Like, again, they made it not matter. Yazel says, many people don't realize with the release of 2.0 we have lost the true two-handed staff, because back in 1.0 you actually held a two-handed staff with both hands. Ah, that is interesting. Now, we've spent like an hour talking about random stuff. So I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. So if you enjoyed this particular stream, it helps me a lot if you leave a like on it here on YouTube. It means that you tell YouTube that this was an enjoyable stream. You'd like other people to enjoy it as well. So that, of course, helps me. Thank you so much in advance. And if you'd like to see more of the people like me or the people in the chat, there is a Discord community server that you can join. You will find me and the chat. You'll also find the weekly schedule where you can see what else is coming up on the channel in the coming days. For example, tomorrow, more Mentor Roulette. We also, there's also an announcement room where you can see links to streams or videos when they come out. And if you go to the role assignments room, you can grab the reminder role. And if you do, you'll get a notification whenever I do post a video or stream. You also get an extra notification around 15 minutes before stream starts, so you don't miss a second. And if you'd like to support the channel even more directly, you can become a member of the channel, you can gift memberships, you can use the super chat, or if you don't like any of the YouTube stuff, there's also a link to a Ko-Fi to a Ko-Fi page in the description. It all helps support me to be able to do all of this for all of you. So thank you all so much for the support. Now, as you can see, it's getting dark. I didn't plan to stream for this long, so I haven't even prepared to turn on the lights. But that's all from me, so good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye!